The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Welcome to the Sports Desk. It's been a while. I'm Scott Galetti, joined by a couple of very special guests here today. We'll introduce them. We're going to talk a lot of sports here today, a lot of different avenues, so we're glad to have you tune in here today. To my right from ESPN Radio is Mike Burt. He is the producer extraordinaire, award-winning producer at that. And to my left, Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. And both these guys have a lot to bring to the table. We'll get things caught up. This is the first show, guys, that we've done here in probably a couple of months. So we're getting caught up on stuff that was in the past that's still out there in the news, and we're also going to get you caught up a little bit on the high school. And as we do every year, we're going to do a lot of previews each and every week as we get you set for the high school schedule, both football, volleyball, you name it. It's starting up here right around the corner. I'll start with you, Will, because you're one of the guys who covers high school. You know, it's one of those situations where, you know, Steve Davis and I and Ed Nunez and I, who isn't here, by the way, today, he's on vacation, but we always talk about, wow, it's June, vacation time. Hey, we don't have nothing to talk about. Next thing you know, July rolls around, the end of July, they have the New Mexico High School Coaches Association meetings, and all of a sudden, boom, we're right back in it.
Yeah, it's crazy. My job is a lot like a school teacher, where I work really hard for 9 months of the year, and then the other 3 months I take off. And after about
recovered from the 9 months that you just worked.
Yeah, after the end of the state track meet and baseball tournament in May, I take 2 weeks off and I'm bored to death. And I count down the days for 2 days, but 2 days actually start Monday for high school football, so we're right back in the middle of it. There's a lot to look forward to. The district changes, a lot of teams moving around, the classifications look entirely different. So honestly, I don't know a lot of what to expect, except that change is a good thing for a lot of the teams out there.
Yeah, later on in the show, we'll mention it. We're going to talk a little bit about those changes and show you what some of the districts in the different classifications are going to look like. A lot different. You got teams from 4A down to 3A. You got Albuquerque High and Independent. There's a lot of things to talk about. We'll bring you in now, Mike, and we'll talk about basically you as a producer for Bob Brown's Locker Room Show. You never get a day off.
No, I mean, this time of year is a little bit more challenging. You talk about baseball for 3 hours. That's an impossible radio show. Nobody wants to do it. So it's like summer is more mellow in terms of what we're expected to do, where we're supposed to be. Press conferences aren't happening, any of those things. But you have to be ultra creative and very, very vigilant in finding guests for this time of year, because it's just nobody wants to talk about baseball for 3 hours. You're hopeful that maybe you get a big UFC card in there. Maybe a crazy story like the Urban Meyer story breaks, which will carry a show for a couple of days, but you do your best. I mean,
right.
And now I mean, as everybody else in this business knows, from August to June, we're all really busy.
And something that the guys in the back can realize, Alden Iowani, our director, as always, you have Josh Brown and you have Jason Pohl. All these guys know a little bit. Even I know doing graphics here. All the background that you have to do just to get a show together. You don't just bring Bob into the studio and say, oh, here we go. You go in, you cut tape, you look at stories all day long, you do a lot of research.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the show works, Bob and I have this really interesting working relationship. We talk to each other a lot. Even when we're off air, we do a lot of preparation. And once we get to airtime, it's audio. I mean, any show could have anywhere from 10 to 15 audio clips that we've gone and found, or I'll tell Bob, hey, did you see this? Sometimes it's comical stuff just to lighten the mood. Sometimes it's very serious stuff. But once we get to air, I mean, it's managing the social media accounts, tweets of the day, all of those things, answering the phone, and still making sure that Bob and I are having a good conversation that you know, solicits phone calls and interaction.
Yeah, speaking of phone calls, you have to screen the callers and everything, and that's not easy.
Well, we're proud to say we don't screen callers. Anybody who listens to the show is very, very aware of that. We have some of our more famous or infamous callers that we just let. I mean, we say, well, you want to talk about what you want to talk about.
Right.
And there's very little limitation. As long as you don't come on and you've got something foul to say, you're probably going to make airwaves. But answering the phone and making sure that somebody's coherent while talking to Bob and maintaining sound bites and all those things. I mean, it's a juggling act that I really enjoy.
Okay, both of you two had an opportunity. One of the things that we haven't had a chance to test because we've been down for the summer, and now we're back better than ever. Ed Nunez will be back from vacation. We'll have the gang all here. We'll have these guys on if you can come on occasion to talk about the high school and different things. I know you also cover the Lobos, Will, but speaking of the Lobos, about 3 weeks ago, big decision at the school. Both of you guys were basically right next to each other during the entire time. I want to start with you, Will. Basically, I watched the whole thing on one of the TV channel's streams, and it was pretty eye-opening, just to say the least.
Yeah, I think the one thing Mike and I were standing right next to each other when Eddie Nunez, the athletic director, accidentally called UNM LSU, which I thought was a moment of levity that didn't paint itself well for the athletic administration. But no, it was a decision that I think we all saw coming. They had to cut sports, and it's the one thing that stuck with me after the fallout and the press conferences afterwards was you had Garnett Stokes, the president, and Eddie Nunez get up and say, look, we were hired to make the tough decisions. We're here to do this. So it's our job to uphold this.
Right.
No one's going to like it. We're going to be upset about this, but this is why we're making our paycheck. So somebody has to do this. And they explained it rationally with the numbers and the financial backing and all that, but the truth is this had to happen. It's unfortunate to see soccer go, to see beach volleyball go. You hate to see kids lose scholarships. You hate to see coaches lose other opportunities. I know Jeremy Fishbein, it was actually his anniversary, his 21st wedding anniversary of the day they announced soccer was being cut. But it's a decision that had to be cut. And look, it could have been much worse. That's the bottom line. It could have been a lot worse. There could have been a lot more heads to roll. So. Well,
the one question I have for you, because you were all over this thing, so I'm going to ask you because you were there the whole time. Mike was there a lot of the time, but you've been covering this thing since it broke. When you say it had to be done, did it really need to be done? Or could it have been done in different areas, kind of across the board cuts to kind of save everybody?
Well, you could have the Band-Aids where you limit travel. You can cut the number of games that each team plays. But really, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to maintain competitive balance for the teams that they still have left.
Right.
And so I think it had to be done because they've been trying for 11 years to balance the budget. 9 of those years they failed to do it. And so something had to be done.
But according to them, this wasn't about balancing the budget after all. It was about Title IX. So they kind of switched things in the 24th hour.
Title IX is a smokescreen. The Title IX.
That's why I have questions about this, because they changed their tune the final 2 weeks before the thing.
Right. The Title IX thing, I think, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with this, is that's not what this was about. It's always.
If you watch that meeting,
yeah,
where they cut the sports, you would think that's all it's about.
Right.
Budget was not mentioned at all.
Right. And to fall into compliance with Title IX, all you have to do is make incremental steps towards equalizing the opportunities for men and women, which they did by eliminating the soccer team. You cut 30 scholarships basically, and so 63 kids were affected with their scholarships. I think it was 42 or 43 of them were men.
Right.
So there's your Title IX fix right there. But let's not get lost in the Title IX thing. It's not about that. It's about money. This school is hemorrhaging cash. And yesterday during
Then why didn't they say that in the meeting? Why did they keep bringing up Title IX?
Because it's easier to blame Title IX. It's easier to say Uncle Sam's going to come breathing down our throat than to say this is about our mismanagement of funds, our mismanagement of the budget.
So in other words, we're not being honest.
Yeah, right. When you're getting laid off, exactly.
Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, I don't like being controversial, but I mean, as a journalist, that's my question.
Yeah, when you're getting laid off, I think the last thing you want to hear is that it's for financial reasons. But it's a convenient excuse that UNM can have. And look, UNM could stand up here right now. They could have the entire administration come in here and say that it's a valid excuse saying Title IX is a very real thing, which it is. But the more pressing issue for UNM now, and it has been finances.
That was mentioned when they agreed that they were going to cut sports in the first place. So why don't you just stick to your guns and say this is what it is?
Yeah, and so I think
that's because there's resolve for just a financial issue. It doesn't have to be about just cutting sports. It's frustrating because Paul Krebs told us 2 years ago, former athletic director, we cannot survive. This is not sustainable. And then you have politicians and legislators and senators and representatives come in 2 years after the meeting, a week after the meeting, saying like, oh, we need to figure this out. We've got to figure it out. But they had 2 years to figure it out. And it's one of those things that's, I mean, there's so many questions you could ask, but if it's merely financial, I'm convinced that they could have found other ways. It's $1.9 million, which is a small percentage of the overall university budget and the athletic department budget that we believe is somewhere around $34 million annually. So you have to believe that there's places to make cuts and find that percentage. But if you maintain the financial aspect of it, and take the Title IX out of it, then they're taking the easy way out. But because of a federally mandated civil rights law, say, well, this is what we have to do. It has to be this way.
And they would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, they might be the only school in the country to go full circle and say, okay, we did it, and then make like a total fix, as opposed to what you were saying, oh, you can do it kind of as long as you're showing that you're making progress. That's all they need to know.
Yeah, see, they've alleviated the Title IX thing, so they can't use that as an excuse anymore. They're still in violation technically of Title IX. They still have to get to a more balanced,
especially after they just cut women's sports.
Right. And see, that's on the surface, it looks like they were more unfair to the women because they cut 3 women's teams and 2 men, but they did lop off more men's heads than women's. So, but this has always been about finances. It's always been about saving money. And in the landscape that is college athletics right now, it's not going to get better for this team, for this school, for the conference, because just yesterday it was brought up during the Bob Davie thing about how the Big Ten network and the TV revenue came in for the Big Ten. Each school got roughly $50 million.
Whereas, that was one of the things I was going to touch on here in the show with you guys also.
And the Mountain West teams all got about $850,000. So you're talking each Big Ten school got $50 million, which far exceeds the $33.5 million annual budget for the entire athletic department.
I know.
So it's not going to get better. So you can cut sports, you can try to tighten the belt as much as you can, but it's just a mess at UNM, and this is reality. This is moving forward for the next 5-10 years. This is as good as it gets. So with 18 teams left, look, just make do with what you have and try to make the best of it.
I'm going to start with you on the same question. I'll ask both of you guys a question, Mike. Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team, Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. We're talking Lobos right now here in the first segment. In terms of the previous meeting where they were talking about, well, we got a budget, we got to lop sports. We got to get rid of sports. They agreed on it. During that meeting, I believe it was that meeting that they said, well, we want to keep the sports that we're successful in. Well, they just got done getting rid of a soccer program which is renowned around the country.
Well, yeah, it's not only a soccer program, it's the national championship ski team. It's a very successful men's track program that wasn't cut but received participation spots that were cut. And that's one of those things that leaves people scratching their heads, and you certainly have to wonder. To me, to me, the answer in this scenario was simple. I think that it would have been fine to move forward with cutting skiing because skiing had already been cut a year prior, and they basically had a year to figure it out, and they didn't figure it out. But I think when you're cutting something as soccer, my recommendation at the time was, and I carry a lot of weight with those regions. I think that the big problem I see with them moving forward to cut the program that is soccer is it's a multi-pronged problem. There's a lot of issues with it. One, we know that they didn't know the numbers for over a decade, and you have an athletic director and a new university president that just familiarized themselves with the number, and I'm not even confident that they know what the numbers are still because of the bad accounting practices that have existed for nearly a decade or over a decade. So they're just getting their arms around that, and what I would have liked to have seen is them say, this is what we're looking at, and because, in my opinion, 1 year later, you're not putting yourself that much further behind in the grand scheme of things. I would have liked to say, we're going to do a feasibility study. We're going to look at what all of our true avenues are, because I don't think those options were explored. We want to look in what the financial profitability opportunities are for a program like soccer in a sport that's growing nationally and a sport that's growing here in our community with the addition of 2 soccer teams in the last year. And I also want to look at the feasibility of football, because we know there's a lot of things that are happening in football in regards to CTE, participation, all of those things, the cost of running a program, and looking, I've not been one that said we should cut football, but I have been somebody that said we need to look at football as far as a profitability aspect, and can it be profitable the way it's run?
Right.
And then you have to look at the media part of it that Will was referring to. Everyone said, well, we got to keep football because it keeps us in the Mountain West. Well, I'm not totally convinced that that's the case. I know that that's the rules, but the Mountain West was just pursuing Gonzaga that does not have a football team.
Right.
I think that we could have looked at maybe dropping football to a D2 program. And I just want to look at what all of those things look like and see that they actually did the research. And I know that research costs money, and that's where I would have liked to see, the state legislature step in. I don't want them funding athletics, but I do want them to fund the studies to figure out a more reasonable solution.
Real quickly before we go to break, Will, same question in terms of getting rid of successful programs when they said that was the whole idea. We want to keep what we're good at.
Which is... That I found that comical, that you have politicians saying that, well, we should keep this. The politicians have no idea what they're talking about. And to say, for them to stand before the media and say that we always had this money, all UNM had to do was come looking. You think UNM didn't look into that? I spoke to Eddie Nunez the day after that meeting. He said, you think we didn't look into that? So to have the state say that there's a treasure trove of cash just sitting around that we can use to save athletics. I'm thinking if there's millions of dollars just sitting around, let's use it on teachers in school, because I've got kids in the public school system and I see how bad it is. And if you're going to save the soccer team, as a tax-paying parent, I would not be happy with that. But I really think it came down to you're going to cut one of 2 major sports. You're going to get rid of baseball or you're going to get rid of soccer.
Right.
One of those 2 had to go, and that argument is settled strictly not on finances, it's on facilities. In the last 10 years, they've got a 10-year naming rights agreement with Santa Ana Star Field. They just put $2.3 million into a new clubhouse for baseball. So if you mothball baseball, you're taking millions of dollars and you're throwing it right out on University Boulevard.
That's a good point.
You cut soccer, you're already using that facility for the women's team, the outdoor men's and women's track teams. And that facility is multi-purpose. You can use it for high schools, you can use it for everything.
Right.
So baseball, they're roughly in that 30 to 40 scholarship range, just like soccer is. It's easier to cut soccer because they're in a travel situation, which is bloated. I mean, they're playing a couple of games. They've got Marshall. There's a team from Florida. Last year they played in Indiana. They played in all 4 time zones last year. Soccer was easy one to go. And to have politicians sitting there saying, I could have saved this all along, which is just the worst argument that a politician can make. I think at this point, it's time for everyone to sit back and say, soccer's gone, and I think for the rest of the year, I'm going to lobby this right now. I think the soccer team should wear blank jerseys the rest of the season that don't say anything. They're the generic soccer team because UNM's not supporting them, and I think the fans should just go out and support the players, support the teams, and then just be done with it.
He's Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican, Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team. We'll take a break, come right back, but first, the Dream Style Top 10 Plays of the Week. down the left field line. It's going to be trouble, and the left fielder catches up to it. Comebacker, they're going to go to the shortstop for one, back to first, and not in time. Loops one into left field. This may drop, and making the diving catch. Did they give it to him? Yes, they did. In losers bracket games, there's a little blooper, and that is caught by the second baseman, Gomez. Ball, no strikes to him. That's a line drive. That's going to be caught by Smith, who goes to Maloney. They get the double play. And they're going to wave the runner around. Williams coming to the plate. And did he miss the bag? Yes, he did. They say that. Nobody out. On the ground to first. They'll go to second one. Back to first. And that is a double play. They're going to wave around the runner. And here comes Thatcher. The throw is in time. A play, dug out. Yes, sir. He gets him over first. What a play.
Golden's pitch. There goes the runner to second. Runner breaking for home. Klein is out. Logan Klein tried to break for third, and they had it.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all, or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, #life change will occur.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Welcome back here to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti. Man to my right, Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team, and Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. We have Alden Iowani, our fine director, Jason Poole and Josh Brown also in the house helping out here. So want to thank everyone for getting us back up and running. We had a little bit of a hiatus. We're glad to be back here, and we're talking right now Lobo sports. And Will, I'll start with you because we started before the break talking about the TV contracts. How long, and this is another one of the questions that you were at the meeting when it was asked, how do you define success? And that's always the biggest question. 2 years ago, Lobos won 9 games. You realize they only beat one team, or I think it was 2 teams with above 500 records, and they got smoked by Boise State.
Right.
Is that a great season, or is it not a great season? I'll ask you that first.
I think, well, football-wise, I think anything approaching 500 should be measured as a success. Because I mean, UNM is just a classic mid-major school right now, and it's not going to get better. It's just that you have the haves and the have-nots.
But do they feel that they're mid-major school? That's kind of
yeah, I'm sure you go into Bob Davies' office, he's going to feel like he's, puff out his chest. He'll feel like he belongs to the big boys. They don't. Let's just drop that argument right now.
Right.
They're a mid-major program. They're cannon fodder for schools like Wisconsin and Notre Dame and USC and UCLA and all these big schools they're going to play down the road.
Right.
But then you bring in the incarnate word. Then you maybe play the Aggies and you have these bump and grind kind of games where you can bolster your record, approach 500.
Right.
But look, I like this year's team, I think they'd be thrilled to death going 5-7.
Right.
And that would be a success. You're just trying to bridge the gap, get to basketball season where your team isn't so much mid-major. They've got a shot to be good this year. So I think for a while we threatened with the idea that maybe UNM could kind of be a football school, but it's definitely a basketball school. We've given up on everything else. It really comes down to those 3 or 4 months in the middle of the winter, and that's all this is. So football-wise, look, just try to balance the budget. Try not to blow your budget. Try not to lose all your money by buying extra blocking pads and fancy uniforms. Just do what you can do to bridge the gap. Get your $850,000 from TV revenue from the Mountain West. Maybe put in a couple of new seats at University Stadium. Make it nicer for us to go, because I bought tickets for my wife and kids to go to the games, and they sit on these empty bleacher seats, and you're just trying to make it a more enjoyable fan experience. But it will never, ever be that big fancy stadium that you get in the Big 12 and the Big 10. This is as good as it gets, and if you can't accept it, then maybe stay home and watch ESPN all day on Saturday.
Quick follow-up, and by the way, I think you guys both know this, as the voice of the Lobos, my job was to promote the team. So, it was always
that must have been hard.
And, kind of pump it up. Hey, imagine pumping up those 1-11 locks.
Right, yeah.
That was my job. Now, having said that, you mentioned about, 5-7. I think they'd look at it as a success. How would the fans who want to come to the games look at it? That's where your catch-22 is.
Right, yeah. I think, and just like it is any year, if the Lobos can beat the Aggies, then it's kind of a neat year. You can do something, but it's gonna be the same thing. They're gonna start the season off. They're gonna beat Incarnate Word like 850-2, and then they'll go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin will have the game over with by halftime, and then they'll come back, and everything for the Lobos hinges on that Aggie game. You go down to Las Cruces, you lose that game, you might as well put all the uniforms in a box, because everyone's gonna give up on everything. The soccer team's getting mothballed. Your football team's already well on its way to another 3-9 season if they're lucky. Wait till basketball season. So I would not want to be the Lobo play-by-play guy and trying to get through that season with the off season that that team had, what Bob Davie had. I mean, he even talked about it a little bit yesterday. Worst GPA they've had since they've been here. They lost 7 games to end the season. They weren't competitive on any level, and they were picked last again. I mean, in the preseason poll, they were picked last in 21 of the 22 ballots that were put out there. So there is no expectation for Lobo football this year. And you compound that with the fact that they just cut all these sports. I don't think, maybe not since Lobogate has there been this down of a culture about Lobo athletics. It's just this is the worst it's gotten in the last 25 or 30 years.
Yeah. So since I asked him a couple of side questions, I'll get you back into the conversation, Mike. I'm going to start with what we were talking about, the TV revenue. Well, right now, the Mountain West, you said 800,000. I thought it was like 1.2 per school, but if it's 850, 1.2, it's kind of splitting hairs. But at the same time, I guess it was Conference USA had the same deal, and then 2 years ago or last year, it's cut down to 200,000 per school.
Yeah.
And last week, Craig Thompson said it's going to be pretty much the same thing with the Mountain West. How do you keep UNM at, FBS? If all these things are happening, you're going to be internet only for a conference in terms of TV and all that stuff, and try to keep up with the big boys, and try not to lose more money.
Well, it comes down to the fan experience. I think that you have, the only way to navigate this is by putting it on the fans to spend money on UNM South Campus, because you're not going to get it in TV deals. You're not going to get it from you're not playing enough money games.
Right.
I mean, there's not the only place that you can find a way to stay financially feasible and be an FBS school and all of the things that come with that is by getting people in the seats. I think that Will is 100% right. If you go 5-7 this year, and if you've looked at any of the schedule, like that would be tremendous. And I absolutely agree that that's a.
Oh, I agree too. I want to. I didn't say that. I agree too. I was just asking what the fans would think.
But like we have a fan base here in Albuquerque that has been very results oriented, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like sports is a result oriented business. However, when you're part of a community that can't put a good result on the field, where these 9-win seasons are kind of a fluke and kind of an anomaly, make it fun. So yeah, find the money to throw a fresh coat of paint at Dream Style Stadium. Find a way. One of the things that I love that happened in Albuquerque last year was what the Isotopes did with the Mariachis nights, because I've been pitching for years that we don't have teams that actually celebrate New Mexican culture the way that New Mexicans know New Mexico, right? So you have all of these weird marketing gimmicks that don't really work, but yeah, absolutely, on third down we should have a mariachi band blasting as loud as they can. I don't know why UNM hasn't figured that out with the band program. Everybody loves that. And we should just make sure that the experience, the overall fan experience, is fantastic. So either drop the ticket price, keep the concessions the same so you're not losing revenue, but you're getting more people in the stadium. The only way to fix the UNM's problems is by ticket revenue. That's the only way I see it happening, and they have to find a way to make those games fun.
You realize I'm laughing because something that sticks in your craw, this is New Mexico. We'll never win 9 games here.
Yeah, I mean,
when you said 9 wins being an anomaly.
Well, but those aren't my words.
No,
like,
I know.
That's the words of the head coach of the football team. He told us last year, and the week before going to Texas A&M, that this is New Mexico. We're not going to win 9 games every year. And I don't want to.
And how do they do it in Boise?
I don't want to discount.
Smaller town.
I don't want to discount or discredit, because part of that criticism is that Bob Davies being overly honest.
Right.
And while that's a really nice character quality to be somebody that's super honest.
Right.
That's not the way that you entice your fan base or your players or your donors to get involved, right? By saying, hey, as long as I'm here, I don't believe that we can win 9 games perennially. And then somebody like me is like, well, how does Boise do it? They have a smaller population and tons of success, and it's built over time. I mean, that success goes back to pre-D1 football.
Right.
I think they've had like 5 losing seasons, and I don't actually mean losing, like 7
Yeah, they were a
wins or
JC
less.
juggernaut before becoming Division I.
It's just because people believe in the product. And or they make it fun. They have something unique, like a blue field. I mean, there's a lot of community support, and it's like that idea of like high tide lifts all ships. I mean, everybody in Boise seems to believe that they are capable, and then they turned it into an actual tangible result.
I wasn't even going to ask this question, Will, but I'm going to throw it out there now, since we're talking about the success and everything and about getting butts in the seats. One of the things that I bring up, and by the way, I went to a school to drop football. I worked for a school to drop football. I worked for another school to drop football. So you got 3 schools that have dropped football. They're flourishing in other sports.
This is your fault, isn't it?
I'm not talking about dropping. No. I'm not talking dropping sports. But what I've brought up, because University of Idaho, who's been struggling out there, all of a sudden they're FCS now. And, people say, oh, we don't want to drop there. Well, you're already playing Incarnate Word. What the heck? What's the difference? I mean, you can have a money game still, because they're allowed to have one money game. That money game is probably worth more to the FCS school than it is to the FBS school. And, oh, by the way, something that football can't do right now, you can win a national championship. And be in the playoffs, and you can have extra games and all this stuff.
No matter what UNM does, it's hard for the fans to get excited about a team and a conference that has 0 chance of winning a national championship. In basketball, you can kind of hold out hope, because we've seen these weird teams kind of come out of oddball places to get to the Final Four, make a run. So you think, you know what, we could actually win a national championship in basketball. But in football, there's no hope of that. The best
unless they drop down.
The best,
then you'd have an opportunity.
Or further down the road, and this is a topic for another day, but restructuring college football, you let the 5 power conferences do their own thing, and then the mid-majors have their own thing, which de-emphasizes it's a watered-down JV national championship, but at least it gives you something to shoot for, because the best that you're ever going to get with the Mountain West is the Las Vegas Bowl or the Copper Bowl, whatever the bowl is in Arizona now. That's as good as it's going to get.
Well, that's
Maybe
if they bring a
20.
second Las Vegas Bowl, because now the Las Vegas Bowl in a couple of years is going to be out, because you're going to have Pac-12 and SEC going on.
Right, and I've got family that lives down in the Southeast Conference territory, and they laugh at the idea that they play football out here. And it's a defeatist attitude.
Right.
Look, we are New Mexico. Bob Davies talked about it, about how hard it is to recruit to New Mexico because you fly a kid in from the heart of Texas, and you're flying over hours worth of desert to get here, and you feel like you're literally on an island of dirt when you come here. And I think there's a prevailing attitude that people have with New Mexico that it's not going to get any better, and the truth is maybe it's not.
And then the other thing is back to the TV revenue. In a couple of years, when they have the thing, according to Craig Thompson, the handwriting's on the wall. Hey, the Mountain West is going to have the same deal as Conference USA, which is basically a couple of chicken scratchings, and you're talking about putting all your games on the internet. Which is kind of what they're starting now with Stadium and everything. So they're kind of setting the ground rules. And he's even said as such, hey, we might be going down this road anyway, but in terms of money coming in, then all of a sudden, well, we want to stay in the Mountain West. Why?
Yeah. Well, you can sign your TV contracts and you can get those ESPN games, but then you got to play on like a Wednesday.
Right.
These weird times. So you have to ask yourself, what's more important, getting the exposure or playing?
You didn't even bring up the Tuesday game.
Right, exactly. I mean, who
you went to Wednesday. That's a
in the basketball
you're getting the cream of the crop if you're on Wednesday.
In the basketball games that start at 10 o'clock on these oddball days, you can get your exposure, but you're going to be playing at weird times on different days.
Right.
Or you can not have that and play all your games on Saturday at 1 o'clock, but you're on Facebook. Like, who's going to watch that? It's just a bad situation to be a mid-major. It's a bad time to be a mid-major unless you're a basketball school, which UNM, I think, should just moving forward say, you know what, we'll keep the football team at a minimum distance, but we are about basketball.
But the fans have already been saying that. I've been here 10 years now. 10 years as of yesterday, actually. So I've been here 10 years, and fans have been saying that since day one.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, New Mexico, UNM.
I always fought it because I grew up a football guy. So I
think every New Mexican wants to have football in their blood. It's just not going to happen. And maybe it's just not meant to be here.
Right.
This is as good as it. Look, New Mexico playing in the New Mexico Bowl. Yeah, we got our own bowl game, which is neat. We can stay in our own locker room, but it doesn't get any better. And
NMSU has their own bowl game now. If they win 6 games, that's the one in Arizona,
which is great for them. Honestly,
it is. Who would have thought that many people would have gone to that game last year? I thought it was great.
Mario Mocha pointed out to all of the reasons that led to the deal that was announced yesterday. Tucson is right in that pocket of NMSU alums. It makes sense that people from Las Cruces.
Last year proved people would hop in their cars and go.
Well, it's drivable. It's a great thing. The only thing that could have been better for them as an independent is to get a longer extension on that opportunity. But for them to have basically first crack if the other 2 conferences don't have the teams that can go. As an independent school like New Mexico State that doesn't, they're not guaranteed anything with a good season now at this point. It was an awesome opportunity for them. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about what's happening in Las Cruces. Mario Mocha's out there beating the bushes, finding anything that he can to drive revenue. Doug Martin, as the football coach, is doing it. Chris Jans did an excellent job with the holdover team last year after Paul Weir left. It seems like Mario Mocha was tasked with the same hand that Eddie Nunez was dealt 5 years prior, and he has done a good job of rebounding that school and making the Aggies fun again. It's been a lot of fun to watch Aggies just get better and better. I'm interested to see how their football team's going to be this year because they lost a boatload of dudes, but I think that they're going to play well.
We'll take a quick break and come right back. He's Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team. Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. You're watching the Sports Desk.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened? Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car crafters, it's like it never happened.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
We're back here on the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti. Alden Iowani, our fine director, and the crew here, Josh Brown and Jason Pohl. And with me right now, the whole show, we have Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team, and this guy over here. Why do you call him our least favorite friend, by the way? Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican.
Oh, look at him.
I'm trying to go. Hey, look at that. Actually, the facial hair thing. My kids wanted to see how much, if I grow a beard. I cannot grow facial hair. I went the entire month of July without shaving, and it's driving me crazy. I don't know how you do it.
I remember my first beard.
No, I've actually had dreams where I'm sandpapering my face. So this is coming on.
But that's my favorite tweet that Mike. When you come on the show on ESPN Radio 101.7 with Bob Brown, that's my favorite retweet. To retweet out from Mike. Our least favorite friend is coming on with Bob Brown, so it cracks me up all the time.
The thing about it is, like, Will and I met a couple of years ago after I started working at the station, and he invited me out to like hoops, and really made me feel like a welcome member in like the media community and just like this extension. But what I came to find out about Will is his cynicism, his sarcasm, his sense of humor is very much in line with mine. So he's the only person I can make fun of on Twitter without getting your feelings hurt. And it's just, nobody ever made us think about it, so I kind of just kept doing it because it was hilarious.
By the way, I was just going to say, Will wanted to talk about your shirt here, so we got to
check out the shirt. Look at that. Sandlot is the best movie ever.
It's the Greg Hambino 20-year anniversary.
That is amazing. I don't know. He wins the uniform of the day. It's got hot dogs on it. If I could dress like that, whew, man.
It's pretty amazing.
What's the correlation of hot dogs, by the way?
No, it's just
he calls me a hot dog.
Well, I mean, Ray Montano.
You see me eat a few hot dogs.
Well, no, it's from the 4th of July. It's when they play the game under the lights. You got the hot dogs, you got the Babe Ruth baseball.
Well, I know what the shirt's from. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But why do we call you hot dog? I mean, does it need any explaining?
Yeah.
I mean,
I like to eat.
All right. Yeah. You asked the question. I'm just saying.
So, kind of an open segment here as we kind of wind down the UNM talk and everything. What avenue do you want to talk about?
Oh, man. I mean, we can talk about anything, but I know that you guys should probably talk a little bit about high school sports.
We'll do that in the last segment. We're going to do that in the last segment. So, in terms of, what do you think UNM needs to do to kind of stem the tide and get the fans' trust? I think is the biggest.
Well, and this has come up a couple of times with tightening the belt. They're lacking a few people in the marketing department, and you look at some of the stuff that UNM has available to them. It's a gold mine to try to get people in.
Right.
So they're doing the little things right now. You got to hand it to UNM. Like the women's basketball team is very active on Instagram, and
they are.
As the father of a teenage daughter and a wife who's constantly on Instagram, I've become indoctrinated into that social setting, which Instagram is. I consider Instagram as like the positive version of Twitter. Twitter's like a cesspool of negativity, which I live into that Twitter. That's like a good place for me.
The separation is real life versus the life I want you to see.
Right, exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Instagram is kind of this positive thing. You can do video and commentary. And some of the UNM programs are actually really good at marketing themselves in that way. But the people that are going to buy the tickets aren't necessarily on Instagram. It's the old people that are driving through town and need billboards, and they still buy the things called newspapers and things like that. So you have to market to them aggressively and try to do it in a positive way that's like, look, we're a community-based organization. We're representing the school. We're the flagship organization. And some of these coaches, like Paul Weir, is actually very good about putting himself out there, which you never really saw before. You didn't see the basketball coaches like Steve Alford didn't have to market because basketball marketed itself. Craig Neal didn't do that a lot.
I'd heard
either.
that one before.
Yeah,
basketball markets itself.
Yeah, but now it's not like that. You kind of have to win the people back. And Paul Weir, he's done a camp up in Santa Fe the last couple of years, and people love that because all of a sudden the guy, the patriarch of Lobo basketball, is in your community, and he brings in some of these players, and it's kind of cool for these kids who see the team from afar have a chance to be down on the floor. It's things like that. It's these little grassroots efforts that UNM has to do better, and they're trying to, but you got to look, if UNM's going to add staff, it should definitely be in the marketing department. Get some billboards, maybe a creative cartoon or something like that, something along those lines that's just different, and it gets people excited because, look, I've been to Big Ten country. And you can go to, say, Madison, Wisconsin, or Ann Arbor, and you can't go anywhere in that community without running into some navy blue sweatshirt stand or the school spirit. There's banners hanging from the street line. You don't get that feeling in Albuquerque. This isn't UNM's town. It's just a city. I think UNM should try to take ownership of this town. And I was just at the mall the other day, and there's stuff for Arizona State in one of the sporting goods stores, but there's nothing on UNM. This is... I can't believe that UNM hasn't explored that opportunity. Find the people to make that work and try to do it that way.
I think you're totally right. I mean, I have been hypercritical and to a fault, some may say, about specifically marketing football. And one of the worst things to happen in regard to football is a guy like Paul Weir showing up on campus because
this comes from a guy who went to UNM, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I get in trouble sometimes because I am very. I try to separate my professional opinion from my personal opinion. Sometimes they intermingle, but the worst thing to happen is Paul Weir coming up and doing all of this work seemingly by himself. I mean, I've seen him film his own Twitter videos. I've seen him challenge people to come out. He's out there doing a lot of the hard work, and he's probably contractually obligated to that to some point. But there are the football program. I mean, the year that they led the league or the country in rushing offense, there was 4 guys largely responsible for that. It was Lamar Jordan, it was Richard McCorley, Terrion Gibson, and I cannot remember off the top of my head who the 4th one was. But they should have been on the billboards around town. They should have been sold as the 4 Horsemen or the 4 Horsemen version 3.0 and made the Notre Dame connection that Bob Davie loves to lean on. I don't have a problem with that. But I know that the football players are out in the community. I know they're reading to students at elementary school. I know they're doing good things, but nobody knows that they're doing those things. And those things are the things that make you feel like the football team is a member of your community and not just something that happens occasionally on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. And so I mean, Paul Weir right now, I absolutely loved his press conference last week when he talked about taking ownership of what's happening and saying, we're doing all these grass things. We're going to Farmington. We're going to Gallup. We're going to Grants. We want to be in our community. Football does some of those things. They have their women's clinic. They do a couple of the other things. But Paul Weir said it was Mario Mocha that gave him those ideas. And NMSU does the caravan around the state for football and basketball every year, and it's hugely successful.
Well, UNM used to do it with the Lobo Club, and I think they stopped. I don't know if they did or they don't publicize it like they used to.
I think that people are a little embarrassed to be affiliated with UNM. Because
I went on some of those caravans out to Gallup and such, and up to Taos. So they used to do it and they used to publicize it.
Somewhere along the way in the last 10 years, UNM got a bigger ego than it rightly deserved. And I think that things started coming apart at the seams, and now they've got to find a way to put that back. And football is a huge player in that. Whether or not they deliver wins, that's not really what I'm asking. Just for expectation to sell yourself, because you can be really fun to watch and take in, regardless of the win. I mean, a close loss is still really fun to be a part of.
He's Mike Burt. I'm Scott Galetti, along with Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. We'll take a break and come back with one more segment on the Sports Desk.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Back here on the sports desk, along with Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017, the team, Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. We're going to get right to it, talk a little bit about the high school shifting. We're going to go in 4A. 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A are going to be different. We'll get into all the districts more next week when Ed Nunez is here. But right now we're going to go to 4A, District 1. And a lot of switch-offs here and what's going on in the high school level. And you look at this district, not a lot of change. Aztec, Bloomington, Gallup, and Kirtland Central. As we go to District 2, your thoughts?
Well, I like the Four Corners district is always pretty competitive. And I think that it's one of the more underestimated in terms of rivalries, because people take that stuff pretty seriously. I think the addition of Gallup in there with Bloomfield is always one of these schools that jumps back and forth between 4A and 5A. But really, I think historically that's Aztec's district to win or lose, and it should be theirs.
Let's go to District 2 now, and you got Bernalillo, Espanola Valley, Grants, Pewaukee, St. Pius, and Taos. So this one really shifted up.
That one is all St. Pius. I know Taos is one of these programs on the rise, but you got Espanola and Bernalillo. That's two programs, and Pewaukee has been struggling. They just lost their head coach. So St. Pius, if they don't run roughshod over that district, I'd be shocked.
Let's go to District 3 and 4A, and it's Lovington, Moriarty, Portales, Ruidoso. I think the only difference was it was a Moriarty, I think, that got added.
That's a lot of travel for Moriarty. That's a far-flung district, and of course Lovington's been down for a while, but yeah, that's never a good road trip.
Let's go in 5A real quickly now, and you got District 1 and 5A, and you got Farmington, Highland, Miyamura, and Piedra Vista. How about Highland being thrown in?
Yeah, Highland and Piedra Vista, that's interesting because Piedra Vista is one of these powerful schools that's done well in terms of jumping up. I like where PV is. That's a good situation for them.
District 2, you have Capital, Del Norte, Los Alamos, and Santa Fe. Your thoughts on this one, because you're very familiar with this one.
Yeah, Santa Fe High drops down from 6A, which is good for them, but I mean, they've got a 33-game losing streak, which is the second longest active losing streak behind Rio Grande. I think Santa Fe could actually make a run in that district. They could be one of these worst to first and then be a 12 seed and get blasted in the first round of the playoffs.
District 3, you have Chaparral, followed by Deming, Santa Teresa, and Silver.
Yeah, that's Silver has historically been one of the better teams at the lower level. I think that could be one of these. This could be one of these things where they make a move and try to make some noise for themselves.
District 4, you have Alamogordo, along with Artesia, Goddard, and Roswell.
What a good. That's probably the best district, top to bottom, really anywhere in.
Adding Alamogordo.
Alamogordo. There's not an off week anywhere in that district.
And then finally, District 5, and Mike, you can chime in on this one because you got Belen, Las Lunas, Valencia, and Valley in there.
It's hard to say. I mean, those teams have all been kind of historically.
Which one doesn't make sense, by the way? Valley.
Yeah, I was going to say Valley's the one that sticks out.
Because they dropped from 6A to 5A.
But that's probably a really good move for them. I mean, bouncing back after the lean years they had post-state championship run, or run up to the state championship, I should say.
What a good district! That Valencia County has always got just amazing rivalries. So that
I was just going to say that those games are the fun games to be at because they're very intense and fun atmosphere.
Yeah.
Let's go to 6A District 1 now. As we'll go to 6A, you got a Trisco Heritage joining Cibola, Cleveland, Rio Rancho, Volcano Vista. West Mesa also joining there, and they're going to have a new head coach this year.
Yeah, I'm a little biased because my kids will feed through Volcano Vista, but that's a fantastic district. The Rio Rancho school is also, I mean, they're always going to have a heads up above everyone else, but a Trisco, just the largest school in the state, they could make a run. Cibola is always good, so that'll be fun to watch.
I'm really glad that they postponed, I shouldn't say postponed, but they put the Cleveland-Rio Rancho game as the final game of the district season this year also, which is something that should have been happening. They'd done it before and they took it away. It's a great move by the schedule makers, and it's a really fun district as well.
Now, there's only 3 districts in 6A now. We'll go to District 2. And District 2 is the same as last year. Clovis, El Dorado, La Cueva, Manzano, and Sandia.
Yeah, you dumped Santa Fe High out of that district, which had to happen, but really, if you're looking at a 6A district that's competitive top to bottom, that is clearly it. Those are 5 really good quality teams right there.
And finally, District 3, and this used to basically be District 4. You got Carlsbad, Centennial, Gadsden, Hobbs, Las Cruces, Mayfield, Oñate, no change.
And a fun district. I mean,
a fun district, yeah.
It's more of a conference than a district.
It's like the SEC over there, man. And that Cruces Mayfield game's got to be one of the best rivalries in the country, not only the state. And, I mean, gosh, that's a lot of good football.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about what we feel is going to happen, highlight some of the games as the weeks progress. Just a few weeks until the first game. You'll be able to follow all the action on Proview Networks, Comcast 26. Also, My 50 is going to be doing the game of the week again. So there's going to be a lot of stuff there. And ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team, I believe, Mike, earliest that we've had the first 4 games come out, which is kind of cool. As on the 24th, it'll be Valley Albuquerque at Milne Stadium. On the 31st, at Trisco Sandia at Wilson. On the 7th of September, Las Cruces La Cueva at Wilson, and then Volcano Vista against Wilson on the 14th of September. And what ESPN Radio 101.7 does is we kind of wait until we know what the best matchup or perceive the best matchup of the week, and that's the game that we air.
Yeah, we usually do like a week-by-week basis.
We rely on David Williams.
So Coach Williams knows better than anybody else, I'd have to say.
He's the man who sets the schedule. We'll put that out there right there.
But I think early on, having 4 games picked this early is not that big of a deal because everybody will be in the mix, and the records won't be so lopsided that it's actually like a bad picked game. And I think the most interesting thing is we're not starting any games at Community in the first month of the season. It's a new thing for us. I mean,
we're doing the first game at Milne. I don't think we've ever done that. Usually, maybe we do 1 game at Milne a year.
I love
Proview.
Milne.
I've done a lot of games at Milne.
Milne is one of these stadiums that just seems, no matter what they do to it, it always seems old and antiquated. But it's. Yeah, Milne's, some of my fondest memories of when I used to work at the Journal were going to games there when you had Pino doing the PA and he would just make up these amazing quotes after a tackle. It's a good time.
I think everybody has those memories about.
Plus, you're right next to Roosevelt Park. You're always due for a shooting over at Roosevelt Park, which is fun.
Thanks. I never thought of that, but
as
many games
I think like a good game of frisbee golf, like a game of frisbee golf.
Yeah.
Well, as we close off the show, guys, final thoughts.
Man, I mean, I think UNM's got a tough task, and I think it's going to be a very rough 2 or 3 years, if not more, ahead of them to kind of right the ship. And as far as high school football, man, there's not a better time of year until we get to basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Your thoughts, Will?
I'm going to predict that the Louisville football team wins 4 games this year. They'll get 1, maybe 2 conference games. I think they go 4-8, and I think you're really going to hear it by the end of the season. Is should they fire Bob Davie? That momentum's going to grow quite a bit.
And see, me on the other hand, I'm saying some people have told me, I don't think they're going to win more than 2. I think they're going to win 5.
Wow.
I think they'll win 5 this year.
That's surprising. You're like the specter of football death. You were just saying that everywhere you go, teams drop and they drop eliminate football. So if by the end of the season they don't drop football, I'd be surprised because you're here. You're like the black.
They drop football, but they
eventually
get 3,500 to baseball.
Somebody's going to have a subcommittee. They're going to figure out that Scott Galetti is the death of college football. They're going to quit hiring you.
You're the plague, man. Great.
That's right.
Well, at least we got high school.
There goes my career.
There we go. Well, want to thank you guys. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
obviously, we got to do this.
Do I get my bonus check as I walk out that door? Is that what I do?
Just a sandwich. Some
Leave it to Will.
All right.
He's Mike Burt from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team, and he's Will Weber from the Santa Fe New Mexican. Thanks to Alden Iowani and the crew. Until next week, I'm Scott Galetti. So long from the Sports Desk.
Yeah.